So the next thing that I want to talk about is a technique called scoring. It's another way to cut cardboard, but this time we don't go all the way through. So I'm going to use the exact same process. I'll mark a line where I want to cut. I'll keep my ruler right on that line. And instead of making multiple passes so that I cut all the way through the cardboard, I'm just going to go once or twice so that I cut through the top layer of the cardboard. And I'll show you what that does. So if I've just cut through the top layer and I go to bend my cardboard, it should give me a nice straight bend. And you can see when I've bent it that I've only gone through one layer of the cardboard. And this is probably a good time to talk about how cardboard is made. Cardboard has a top layer and a bottom layer and then what we call corrugation in the middle. And scoring is when you only cut through part of a material so that you can make a bend like this. It's a really useful technique if you want to make 3D objects by folding up flat pieces of paper, or if you want to make hinges that you're actually going to use in your designs. One thing to notice is that I can score cardboard across my corrugations so that it looks like this, or with my corrugations. I've got another piece where I've done that, where I've scored it with the corrugation. And it's something you can just notice and play around with. Your scores will behave a little bit differently if you're cutting with the grain of this corrugation or across it. So now that you know the basics of cardboard cutting and cardboard scoring, let's combine them to actually make a shape. What I'm going to try to do is make a box, a little box out of this piece of square cardboard. And I'll show you how to do that. It's going to involve a couple steps. The first thing that I'm going to do is to make a box shape, I'm going to divide this up into 9 equal squares. So that means this is 6 inches across, and I want to mark thirds as I go across, so 2 inches and 4 inches. I'm going to do that in 2 spots so that I can draw 2 lines that are parallel to the edges that divide this up into thirds. So you'll see that in a moment, 2 inches and 4 inches. And then I'll take my ruler, place it across my 2 little dots that I've made, and as long as I measured well, these should be nice parallel lines that divide up my shape. Where's my other dot? Let me measure that again. I'll come 2 inches off the edge here. Line up with my second dot. And make a mark. So I'll do the same thing in the other direction. I'm going to mark 2 inches and 4 inches. And then a little bit further down, I'll do the same thing. And when I line up my ruler on those dots, it should give me nice parallel lines. Now, if you make different shapes, you'll have to measure them out in different ways. This is just the technique for making a box out of a square. Okay, so I've got my cardboard. It's divided up into 9 different squares. Now, if I think about the way this is going to fold up into a box, this panel is going to be the bottom. We can call this one the front, the back, and then maybe the left and the right. And these in the corner are going to be waste. So they're actually going to be cardboard that I cut off and I don't use. I'm going to mark those with an X just so that I can remember that they're pieces that I actually cut out. I'm going to use both cuts to take away this material I don't want and scores to help me bend this. You'll see how that works as I go through this process. So using my cardboard cutting technique, first I'm going to cut out each corner of this so that I'm left with this little cross shape that's going to fold up into my box. So one more safety note, as I start to make more complicated cuts, the number one way to injure yourself using a blade like this is to start cutting cardboard, have your knife stick a little bit, and then pull off into your finger or into your leg. A couple ways to stay safe while you do this. One, don't cut with your hand behind the cardboard or don't cut on your leg at all. You want to cut on a flat surface so that everything is nice and steady. And two, when you cut, make sure that if your blade slips down, your hands aren't in the way. So you can see if I cut like this, my thumb is in the way. But if I keep my hand to the side, even if my blade slips a little bit, I won't get cut. Okay, so let's go ahead and I'll cut out the corners of this box. I'm going to use my ruler as before, and on each of these cuts, I'll make a couple passes so that I'm sure that I've gone all the way through the cardboard. So there we go, one corner removed, and I'll just do the same thing on the other 3 corners. And I've got my X's marked here so that I don't get confused. If I cut the wrong pieces out, I might have to start over, or I might have to do some repairs later on. And again, I'm making sure that my ruler is tightly pressed down so that it doesn't slide around when I make these cuts. So that'll be my last cut. These are going to be scrap cardboard. I'll keep them because they might be useful later. And here's my little cross shape. So my last 4 lines, I'm actually going to want to score because I'm going to bend up these walls to make my little box. So that means that I'm not going to take too many passes through this cardboard. I just want to cut through the top layer. I can probably do it in just 1 or 2 light passes. If I do this right, when I start to bend this, you'll see that it bends along that scoring line. So I'll do that on each of the sides. Being careful not to cut all the way through. And I'll go ahead and break my other scores. There we go. And you'll see that when I fold all of these up together, they form a little box. And I would have to apply some glue or some tape to make sure that it stays up. One thing that you should notice is that I score on the back of the way that I fold. It is possible to score and bend inwards, but you'll just have to pay attention to how much cardboard material you have and how that looks. It's something you can play around with. But usually you're scoring on the back side of something and then bending inwards. So here's my box. So we just went over making a little box using cutting and scoring, and you can see that it starts as this T shape. We made some cuts, we scored some lines in it, and now we can fold it up into a 3-dimensional box shape. And I wanted to show you quickly some examples of other shapes that are made using this technique. So here's a little sort of fish. It's got a little mouth here. And here I've made a triangle using scores where it's bent, and then also cutting out some shapes. And it's become this little character. Here's a different kind of setup. This is a sort of elephant, and it's based on this box shape, and it's got little flaps that you can fold down. And it's got some other stuff added on to make more of a character. So by using cutting and scoring and folding 2-dimensional cardboard up into 3-dimensional shapes, we can make the body of our little creations. And you can get really complex and really creative using these techniques.